on being ignored, because I believe that this is a very, not so much an extroverted, but a more introverted way of being needy and not even realizing it. Needing external validation, acceptance and love, but not being aware that we are actually doing this in the first place. So being ignored, or the fear of being ignored, is actually the same thing. It's just that in one example, the first example, we are experiencing it on the physical, and the other one, we're holding ourselves back from actually getting hurt, rejected, abandoned, and neglected, so that we have this fake kind of we have created this fake notion that we are maybe accepted, but we're not really accepted. So in this video, I would like to talk about being ignored, and if we are not wanting to be ignored, how it is the same thing as actually being ignored. So being ignored and not wanting to be ignored, and actually doing everything possible to not be ignored by others, is actually the same wound. And at the end of the day, it's kind of gonna get us rejected and abandoned and neglected by others, so they can show us, mirror back to us what it is we're doing to ourselves. So not wanting to be ignored or being ignored is also something else. It's needing external validation and acceptance. And for all of us that do not want to be ignored, there is this, how do you call it? There's this issue that we are also neglecting to see. When we're not wanting to be ignored, we're actually only wanting external acceptance, external locus of control, right? So basically, we are choosing to be in the victim position. So either being ignored, or not wanting to be ignored, or not being ignored but still being afraid of being ignored, is the same wound. And it's actually both these narratives, these programmings, are actually saying this, that I can only be validated and given attention from my outer world, not by me. And with that being said, this is why we would not want to be ignored in the first place, because that's how being ignored is actually really painful. So the more we're focusing on external validation, external focus, and external acceptance and love, the more we are rejecting this part of ourselves that we can actually fulfill for ourselves, and we are disowning it and giving it to others to do for us, the more the wound, the trigger, the more painful the trigger and the wound when it comes to the thought of being ignored, or to the actual, event of really being ignored in the physical by another person. Now, in the previous video, I did not really explain the step-by-step process on how to heal this, and today I would like to actually talk about that. And how it is actually a blessing once we are wanting to see this as a growth process, as an opportunity to grow into more self-love, self-approval, self-acceptance, and then we become the cake and the other people become the cherry that can give that back to us, and without us having after the fear that they will take it away. Because you see, as long as we're being ignored and we're not wanting it, or we're not being ignored but we're afraid of it, basically, if someone will come and give us some sort of acceptance or love or attention, then what happens is we become imprisoned from our fear of losing that, and we make the other person more important than us, our savior. We put them in the savior position and we deify them, and we don't want to lose them. Then there's these other fears that come up, that this person is very valuable because they're able to do something we're not able to do for ourselves, and now we are actually prolonging the codependent cycle instead of opening up for relationships that are more healthy and loving and respectful, we are going into more drama and trauma. So we would want to reverse this kind of pattern and take a look at it for what it really is. You know, when people mirror to us things that we are in awe and we love and we absolutely appreciate, the next thing we would want to do is, do I do this for myself? And how often do I do it? Do I, you know, do I give me the acceptance and the importance and the focus I need on a daily basis? Because if somebody treats us well, and this is it's not talked a lot about in the spiritual community, I have noticed. It's something that has been troubling me, and I had to really work on this. But when people that we find so high value come into our lives and we have not worked on building, you know, the version of ourselves who is actually, you know, nurturing ourselves on a daily basis, is loving ourselves in a way that we wouldn't, you know, anticipate or expect others to do. They can do it if they want to, but we're not needing it because we are fulfilling that void. We know how to take care of ourselves, and the more we can do that, the less, you know, expectation and heaviness we put onto others. And then for other people to come into our lives, and it is a lot more, you know, light and easy and not so heavy, you know, with responsibility. Like, you know, if we're not taking care of ourselves and we are afraid of others ignoring us and not giving us what we are needing, it puts a very heavy weight on another person to think that they are responsible for us and our happiness, and then it makes them feel very uncomfortable emotions and feelings. It would make us feel the same as well if we had somebody wanting and expecting for us to always giving them the importance they need, or always giving them the, you know, the attention. And sometimes it's okay to not get the attention we are expecting and needing from other people. We want to make it okay because sometimes we're not even able to give it to ourselves or others. And, you know, somebody could, you know, give it a meaning, you know, that action, give a meaning to it, like, you know, I'm ignored, or you're ignoring me. But maybe sometimes it's just that, you know, I'm focusing on something else, I'm focusing on you right now. That doesn't mean I'm ignoring you, it's just that I'm focusing on this, I'm prioritizing this, and that's okay. So we want to take, you know, the ignoring and look at it for what it is. It's the meaning we give it. Oh, somebody's ignoring me because they don't love me, because they don't want me, because they don't care about me. Well, maybe yes, maybe no. But when it comes to, you know, at some point, maybe somebody will not really care about us. But if we're giving ourselves that love, then even that's the worst case scenario. You know, it's just a trigger in the ego in the moment. And once we are there and present with it, we can actually release it. So let's go and see how we can actually reprogram ignoring into self-focus, self-acceptance, and self-love, where we become the version of ourselves that now others can actually come back and give us what we are already giving to ourselves. Okay, so the first thing is first, we can actually experience being ignored by a thought alone. So just the memory of something that has happened in the past, or something that can happen in the near future, it comes as a thought and we can get triggered. And when I tell my clients that, because my method is actually working with the trigger, so what we would do is want and expect and anticipate the trigger. Since we have the wound, the trigger will manifest sooner or later, so we can feel, heal, and integrate. If we are avoiding it, that means there's still work to be done. That means there's still fear of experiencing that, you know, abandonment from the outer world, or disappointment, or being ignored from the outer world as something that's very heavy, which means the heavier we feel of, you know, the specific trigger and wound, the less we are self-sourcing that wound from the inner world and giving us what we are wanting. So the more we are doing the inner work, the less heavy this trigger becomes, the less intense this trigger becomes. So what we do is we expect the trigger, we anticipate it. it's going to happen anyway. You know, when we're not expecting it, it actually comes as a surprise, and then we are shocked, and it's like, you know, somebody coming in all of a sudden, and then we're not prepared. But if we're prepared for the trigger, we can work with it. And remember, the trigger is our friend, it's our guide to enter our inner world and access our emotional world, the unknown, territory of where we haven't explored yet. And the negative, actually, when we embrace and accept it and follow it, it actually helps us enter and access our inner world, our emotional world. And this is the first step of when we are, triggered by thought alone or by experience, to say yes to the trigger. Say, yes, here you are, come. So we just call it in. And where we would want, when we would usually react to this trigger by fighting, flighting, freezing, pushing it away, not wanting it. And this is how this pattern is repetitive again and again. It's coming back from the subconscious so that it can be seen, so it can be dealt with, loved, and healed. What we would want to do is the opposite. So instead of not wanting it, we want to call it in. Feel the pain by being present with it. Allow to go with it. Feel it on the body level. Feel it until it is totally felt and seen and heard and felt. And this is how we allow to feel. And to allow to feel is the process of healing, by being present with it, right? Because it's different to just feel ignored and not wanting to feel ignored. That's not healing. To want to feel ignored and be here with this emotion, with this feeling, and allow for it to grow through us, right? We grow through it. And this is how we heal triggers. This is how we transmute. This is how we create quantum shifts. And we can shift from, experiencing the same lesson again and again. And this is how we actually heal it. And the more we are wanting to be triggered by being ignored, the more we are wanting it, the more we are healing it. And at some point, when we are so certain of this process that, wow, look at that, the more I'm here for me, the less you trigger me, the specific trigger. It's triggering me less and less. And now I'm owning my power back. It's like the soul power is coming back towards me. And now what I can do is I can actually work through this again and again and again until I've mastered it. So now my trigger is no longer mastering me, but I'm mastering it. And so we allow for it to come as a thought, to come as an experience, and we bring in the focus in our inner world, on our body level. We allow it to feel the feeling. We allow it to go in, and we sit there with it for as long as it wants and just love it. And maybe speak to our inner child, right? And say, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. And just talk with it and sit and show ourselves this way that it's safe to be with ourselves instead of doing what we were doing before. The moment we saw somebody ignoring us from the outer world, we would actually want to disown this experience, this emotion, and want to ignore this emotion and feeling of abandonment. And so we would be doing what it is exactly that we were seeing from our outer world. We would be doing to ourselves. And this is how we start to shift. So we start becoming the version by being present in being ignored, right? In that moment, we start becoming the version we're wanting from others. So when I feel ignored, if I'm present with me, I'm training my nervous system so that this is my new normal, not what I used to do. And then being ignored is something that is not really something that I'm used to anymore, because now I'm used to something new. I hope this video was helpful for you. If you need more guidance on being ignored, please don't hesitate to DM me on social media. And for any other questions, I would love to answer your questions. Send me them and I'll prepare more videos for you. With that being said, have a beautiful evening, day, morning, afternoon. Bye.